prices have sort of made things worse.
So onion prices aggravated what is already a difficult situation that exists for the Congress on the ground.
If the onion prices remain as high
today
in November, then it's going to be bad.
Then it's going to be terrible. So the first thing that the Congress has to do is get onion prices down in the next week. But Sudhanshu Mittal, you know, the fact is that, as is being suggested, Sheila Dikshit has been in power for 15 years now in Delhi. Do you believe that the BJP can rely only on the humble onion to bring down someone who's been in power for as long as Sheila Dikshit has?
No, we don't have to rely on onion, because the misgovernance has really percolated down to the lowest level. You know, the prices not only of onion, what about petrol?
Give me an example. When you say misgovernance of Sheila Dikshit, give me an example. Give me an example what you believe is misgovernance of Sheila Dikshit, which the BJP will exploit.
That's what I'm saying. The price rise for across the board, be it petrol, be it cereals, be it pulses, be it anything. Today, the prices are beyond the reach of a common man. Look at the housewife who gets 5,000 rupees, 6,000 rupees from her husband. Every month, the budget she makes, it goes for a toss. Why? Because what she plans, the price rises and the inflation really makes it redundant. It's this anger. Look at electricity. How the prices of electricity have touched sky high. Because of the corruption. Allow me.
Yes.
Because of the corruption involved. You see, these are artificial prices. The problem is that the discoms have been permitted to get away with false figures, and at the cost of whom? At the cost of a common man. So the issue of price rise affects everybody beyond one particular commodity.
Okay, let Ragini respond to that. Quickly respond. The fact is, the sense is that price rise becomes a symbol of a general voter anger. You ask voters, why are you angry with the government? Mehngai badh gayi hai. It becomes symbolic of all that has possibly gone wrong in the last 12 months in particular.
I said that's a concern for the Aam Aadmi, and that's a similar concern for the Congress party. But you will also have to keep in mind that the BJP wants to politicize every issue. It's pure rhetorics, it's baseless allegations that they want to play on. You asked a very specific question about development. All he could, governance. The only thing he could talk about was price rise. You talk about roads, you talk about metros, you talk about flyovers, you talk about buses, you talk about the green cover, you even talk about electricity. I have data to prove that, you know, comparatively, Delhi has still, the actual bills are cheaper than the rest of the metropolitan cities. So, I mean, what are you talking about? They don't even have a face to match the stature of
I'll come to the face question. I'll come to the face question of Sheila Dikshit versus the rest. Sudhanshu, I'm giving you a quick response and then I'm coming to my next big question. Go ahead.
We have promised that we shall reduce the price by 30%. And it's a promise coming from a national party. It's a solemn promise. It's not a fictitious statement being made in the air. They may be accustomed to that, we are not.
Okay.
And once we have said 30%, we have reasons to say that. Because we will eliminate the corruption which has gone into fixation of these prices.
Responsible statement coming from the party which was talking about India shining.
No, just a minute.
That amuses me.
Just a minute. Let's step back, Sudhanshu. Let's come to the next question. Yes. There are serious questions to be asked. We asked the Delhi voters, and this is important because the big factor in Delhi this time is the Aam Aadmi party. We asked the Delhi voters, which party do you think is better for Delhi? 34% as per the poll. Remember, 14,000 people polled in the Hindustan Times poll went with the Congress. 28% preferred the BJP, while Arvind Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi party got a thumbs up from 20% of the voters. 20% said the Aam Aadmi party, which is making its debut, is the party to watch out for. Will the Aam Aadmi party make a difference if it comes to power? 24% of those polled said yes. A majority, 56%, do not feel so, and 20% of the voters had no opinion. We asked the pollsters, who would you have voted for if the Aam Aadmi party was not there? They said no Aam Aadmi. 54% said they would have voted for the Congress supporters, and BJP, while 34% would have preferred the Congress, 54 would have preferred the BJP. So Aam Aadmi supporters are mainly BJP supporters who are switching at the moment. Yogendra Yadav, your first reactions to that. 20% of those polled said that the Aam Aadmi party is their preferred party for Delhi. Are you seeing that as a victory of sorts, or a disappointment?
Rajdeep, normally I should be happy with something of this kind because, you know, 20% for a party which has never contested election, which is entering for the first time, normally should be very good news. And now that I'm on the other side of the divide, sitting here as a politician, I should remember what I used to say, it's pointless to quarrel with figures. Surveys are very useful bits of information, and the point is to interpret those things rather than to quarrel with it somewhat meaninglessly. Allow me to ask, therefore, 3 or 4 questions. I don't know if there's anyone from the survey team to answer those questions.
Rajesh Mahapatra from Hindustan Times has just joined us, so we'll try and get Rajesh to answer those questions, but go ahead.
Lovely. You know, there are 2 or 3 things that worry me about it. Let me first of all say the sample size is very decent, very good, and the sample spread as is being reported is quite impressive. So I should compliment those who've done this survey about it. There are 2 or 3 things that worry me. One is to know how exactly the respondent was selected. Was it done randomly? Was substitution allowed? That's one question needs to be asked.
Yes.
Second
Yes.
is about the sample profile. In the sample that was conducted, yes, you said male and female.
Yes.
But I'm more interested in finding out how were different classes of Delhi represented. And finally,
Yes.
The timing of the survey worries me. It's spread
Yes.
over 40 days.
Yes.
These 40 days have seen significant changes. I
Right.
say all this, Rajdeep, because it so happens that we got surveys conducted during this period.
Right.
And they provide a very, very different picture. Now, I don't want to quarrel with someone else's figures.
But I'm asking you,
but
are
I
you
do
seeing...
want to understand the figures.
Sir, the figures, Yogendra, do show that the survey was carried out, and Rajesh, you can reconfirm that across classes, across segments in every constituency of Delhi. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And random sampling.
The sampling was random. It was across all classes. And in fact, we do have figures, you know, about respondents in different classes responding differently. Let me also come back to the duration of the survey. It's a 40-day, it's a long duration, but why it is 40 days? Because we did it in 2 phases. We did the survey, and then we saw that there were a few things that were rapidly changing. And in order to capture that, we went back and revisited some of the findings. That's why it was fairly prolonged. Having said that, I also would like to add a qualifier that it was mostly winded up by September 10, till which time we had not seen 2 developments, very critical developments, one relating to BJP, which is the announcement of Narendra Modi as the Prime Ministerial candidate, and the second is the Muzaffarnagar flare-up.
Okay, but you want to quickly respond to that Modi point, because we'll of course come back to it later. Manini, do you believe that the fact that post September 10 dramatically things could change, as the survey is showing, the initial figures are showing Congress, then BJP, then Aam Aadmi? Do you believe Modi could change that equation? Interestingly, 54% of those who are saying they would vote for Aam Aadmi would otherwise have voted for the BJP.
Yeah, I think Modi, I mean, everyone is talking about Modi being the factor. And if Modi isn't a factor in a city like Delhi, and he's sort of catering to the urban middle class, then it's bad news for the BJP. So I would assume that if there is another survey, then there would be some kind of a swelling of BJP supporters.
You expect a swelling, Sudhanshu? That's enough for you to bring a smile on your face. But as of now, are you putting all your eggs, even in Delhi, in the Modi basket? Because I'm told that on the 29th of September, you're planning to launch your Delhi campaign with Narendra Modi. You're already calling it the biggest rally that Delhi will ever see.
We call it the Maharela, not the rally, because the overwhelming response and the overwhelming desire of people to have Modi address to the issues of Delhi, I think is something which people are really looking forward to. I would just like
but
to
Modi is not contesting for Chief Minister of Delhi. I want to make that clear. Modi is not contesting for Chief Minister of Delhi.
Allow me. We have said Delhi badlega, Desh badlega. But secondly, let me just say about the survey you just talked about.
Yes.
I have been into this survey thing for a very long time.
Yes.
And let me make a few observations. 70 Vidhan Sabha means that any survey which is less than 1.5 lakhs is meaningless. You know, there are 11,673.
No, that's not true, Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal. Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal, many of us have done surveys long before you, and 14,000 is a very big sample.
Allow me to say something, please.
Yes.
Rajiv.
Yes.
I have done more surveys than I challenge anybody else. Anybody else.
Yes.
Because of the sample size which I've always had, and I've had nothing less than 1.5 lakhs. For the simple reason, there are 11,673 polling booths.
Okay.
A sample of 14,000 representing 11,000. And do you know what kind of heterogeneous polity we have in Delhi?
I take
there
your...
are not two similar polling booths.
Okay, so you're questioning the sample size. Sudhanshu, I take your point. I take your point. Hold on. But I want to focus...
I just want to enlighten one more thing.
No, just a minute. Before I come back to you, I want to focus for a moment on the Aam Aadmi Party. Because, let's be honest, Vinay, Yogendra is saying that in normal times he would have taken 20% as a huge triumph, in a sense, for the Aam Aadmi Party, because 20% for a debutant party will be a remarkable performance if it sticks on counting day. Do you get a sense that the Aam Aadmi Party remains the kingmaker or spoiler in this Delhi election?
It does, Rajdeep. Unfortunately, both Congress and BJP are reading this entire poll and the analysis wrong. The real way of reading this is, for the first time in the history of Delhi politics, there is a party which has come in and converted it into a tripartite fight instead of a bipolar fight. You've never had a three-party system in Delhi ever since 1993.
We had the BSP getting 7 or 8%
never in
the
terms of
past.
seats.
Yes.
That's the first big change. The second big change is, if you see the vote which goes against the government, if you add the Sheila Dikshit, the BJP in the Aam Aadmi vote, it's far greater than the pro-Congress vote. What it tells you is there is enormous vacuum in Delhi. The problem is that BJP doesn't seem to be occupying that vacuum, which is where the Aam Aadmi Party is stepping in. And that's where the issue of personality-led contest in Delhi becomes extremely important. They have a personality in Kejriwal, BJP doesn't.
You know, I'm going to come to that, Ragini. One of the things from the pure percentages that is coming, just look at the percentage of Congress, 34%. Add the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party percentage, it's coming to 52%. There is a strong anti-Congress mood in Delhi at the moment. You are, if at all, surviving. We'll see whether you survive or not. Is because the Aam Aadmi Party is eating into the anti-incumbency against you.
You're trying
you
to say
should
that
be sending
Aam Aadmi Party is probably softening the blow. All right, we are not going to do any such thing. To begin with, let me say that my personal experience tells me that you should always take such kind of polls with a pinch of salt, which I'm going to do.
Yes.
All right. Secondly, I would say that after 3 terms of being the incumbent government, and despite the anti-incumbency which you're talking about, your survey proves Congress to be on the top. I'm assuring you that we are coming back with thumping majority.
No, but you're not answering my question. Is there a sense, Rajesh, from these numbers of strong anti-incumbency, 32 plus 20, 52%, there is a strong anti-incumbency here as well?
I think very rightly, as you said, it's 3 terms. And going into a 4th term, there is definitely a certain amount of anti-incumbency.
Which is normal, which is natural.
But you know, I would like to respond to that and also to what Sudhanshu said. We don't just have to go by the survey figures. If you looked at yesterday's BJP rally, it was more of an attack on AAP, and where they also went to the extent of saying AAP has been funded by Congress, because in their assessment, AAP is helping Congress more. I mean, it's their own admission.
You know, that's an interesting... Manini, do you believe this, that the Aam Aadmi Party's emergence, in a sense, is giving the Congress a chance because the anti-incumbency vote is getting divided, and therefore the BJP's real target in the next 8 weeks doesn't have to be the Congress as much as it has to be the Aam Aadmi Party? And do you believe as we come closer to counting day, maybe people will say we won't vote for the Aam Aadmi Party and waste our vote?
No, I think yesterday, in fact, the BJP is so jittery, as Rajesh said. They actually said this, that the Aam Aadmi is the sort of Trojan horse of the Congress party. But one thing I would agree with Ragini, I'm actually surprised that the Congress is getting 34% of the vote after 3 terms, which means Sheila Dikshit still hasn't... she's not a, you can't just write her off. I mean, after 15 years in power with CWG scam and all these things, because the truth be told, Delhi has really prospered in 15 years. That is one aspect. But the second thing about Aam Aadmi, I'm not so sure the Aam Aadmi's supporters so far are the vocal middle class. What the Congress itself is not sure, that the Aam Aadmi is also working among the working class and the poorer sections. Yes. If they actually make huge inroads there, then it's not good news for the Congress. Congress would hope that the Aam Aadmi will take away 10,000 votes, but not enough to win.
The Congress will hope that the Aam Aadmi Party will only target the middle class colonies and not the jhuggi jhopdis. But I want to get Yogendra on a final question before I take a break. Yogendra, who is your enemy number 1 in this election? You've been called by some, including by the BJP yesterday, as a B team or a Trojan horse of the Congress. Who is your enemy number one in this election? Is it the Congress or the BJP?
Rajdeep, these expressions have been used by both parties at different points of time. Yesterday it was the BJP, earlier the Congress has been doing the same thing. I want to get one important thing clear, Rajdeep. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on all the time.
Yes.
The important thing, I mean, I hope you have not yet given the vote share figures. All that you have said are about supporting, which is a very different kind of a question who people pick up. The reason I'm surprised, and I just want to register that, Rajdeep, this is precisely the period, August 1st to September 10th, is where we have got 2 polls done, not 1. Second is in progress. First one we have done. And the figures we get from that, again, randomized exercise, much smaller than that. I mean, I'm not making the point that Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal is making. I think, you know, I can't possibly do that. Today I sit on the other side and I start saying these figures are silly.
Yes.
But I do get very, very different readings. And I would really want, and one thing we have done today, Rajdeep, in a press conference that we held, we have actually released the raw data files of our survey to the public. This is for the first time that any survey has done so. Can we invite some others also to do so that we can check and see why we have different readings?
Before I have 30 seconds in which I have to take a break. You're not answering my question. Who is going to be your main target in this election campaign, Congress or the BJP?
Rajdeep, one has to attack the Congress because that's the ruling party. Our plea is Congress must be thrown out and BJP is incapable of doing so. So we are the only alternative. That's the plea we've taken.
Okay. Congress must be thrown out. The BJP is incapable of replacing the Congress. Please vote for Aam Aadmi is the plea that the Aam Aadmi party is making. But clearly, as Vinay rightly put it, for the first time, Delhi will see a 3-cornered race. And that is why this Delhi election is becoming so fascinating. Let's take a break. Up next, the big question. Who is the preferred choice for Delhi Chief Minister? Is it Sheila or Arvind Kejriwal? That's coming up. Or Vijay Goel, sorry, when we return. On Times poll done by C4, the big Delhi poll. Who will win the assembly elections in Delhi if they were held today? Remember, the elections take place at the end of November. The next big question. We asked those who polled to rate Sheila Dikshit's performance as Delhi Chief Minister. 43% were satisfied. 57% were dissatisfied. So the dissatisfaction level well above the satisfaction level. Should Sheila Dikshit be Chief Minister again if Congress wins? 38% said she should pass on the mantle to someone younger. 41% said she's been a good CM and should continue. The other big question, who should then be Delhi Chief Minister? 7% opted for Ajay Maken, now the spokesperson of the Congress. 18% thought Vijay Goel would be a good choice of the BJP. 22% preferred Arvind Kejriwal of Aam Aadmi Party. Top of the list with 29% was Sheila Dikshit herself. So even after 15 years, she was above her contenders. Sudhanshu Mittal, this is part of the problem, isn't it, for the BJP, that even if there is anti-incumbency against Sheila and there is a high level of dissatisfaction as our poll shows, the first choice for Chief Minister is Sheila, then Arvind Kejriwal, and then only Mr. Vijay Goel. And we don't even know whether Mr. Vijay Goel will indeed be your choice for Chief Minister. Would you concede that just as you had someone, you had Narendra Modi as your PM designate, you need to make someone stronger as your CM designate?
Rajiv, if these are the figures, let me tell you, Sheila ji has something to worry about. Because the recall value of her incumbent Chief Minister in any poll is very high. 29% is pathetically low. Any normal poll, if you have seen in the past, should have shown minimum of 36 to 37% people saying she should be the Chief Minister. And if it is reduced down to 29%, then the writings are there on the wall. Because this is an indication, because, you know...
No, you're not answering. Again, you're not answering. You're changing the goalpost. I asked you, why is it that your potential Chief Ministerial candidate is even behind Arvind Kejriwal? Mr. Vijay Goel surely should be higher than 18%.
No. You have to understand that, A, we have still not projected anybody as a Chief Minister. Secondly, our problem has been that for 15 years, BJP has been out of power.
Yes.
We have been fighting the Congress as a party and not vis-a-vis an individual. We've had 5 presidents in the meantime.
He's admitting to that.
do not
He's
have a
saying that there is a
leadership.
crisis of leadership within the BJP as far
No,
as Delhi is
please allow me
concerned.
to speak.
You've just conceded to
Allow
that
me to
fact, Mr.
speak.
Sudhanshu Mittal.
Allow me to speak.
Yeah, please do that. Please
I said
speak.
you have a problem of 29%, lady. Do you realize that at 29% she's a loser? Because
That's
any
your
normal
interpretation.
incumbent chief minister
That's
should be
your own.
36
That's your
and
individual
above.
interpretation.
And as far as
You're
BJP is
trying
concerned,
to
we
misread
are
the
doing
figures.
a
That's not my
party-centric-
problem. Neither is
What-
that a problem
One
of Congress
by
party.
one.
speak.
Sudhanshu, I just
Allow me
want
to speak.
Sudhanshu, I just want a quick answer to that, and then because I want to widen this issue of leadership. Are you going to project someone, or are you happy with the idea that your project that Vijay Goyal at 18% is good enough for you?
I think it's brilliant on the other side. And secondly, see, for us, it's a Congress versus BJP. It's an issue versus the promises.
It's
Mudda or
interesting.
Vaida.
It's interesting
It is-
at the
it is
national
my-
level you want to make it presidential. At national level it becomes presidential, but in Delhi it's become Congress versus BJP. Why not admit that
Because
you
that's
don't
what-
have someone? Why don't you make Arun Jaitley or Sushma Swaraj your contender? Then you'll be in a better position.
There can't be a debate if Sushma ji or Mr. Arun Jaitley was to lead Delhi. There can't be a debate. But
Okay.
the fact is, they are national leaders of stature who have to serve their national responsibility.
Okay, hold
and
on.
We are fighting on a BJP versus Congress.
Okay.
Just one thing, Rajdeep.
Yes,
One last observation I want to make.
Yes.
By its own admission, Aam
Yes.
Aadmi Party says
Yes.
46% is voting for them, 29% for BJP, and 26% voting for Congress.
Yes.
That's what we've seen in posters today.
Yes.
And their primary target is Congress still. I mean, isn't this amazing?
Okay, hold on.
Mira
I'll
Kushti versus
come to that
Kakate.
point.
Isn't this a fixed match? When we say that they are in collusion with each other, this is an indication. By your own survey, we are 29, they are 26. You got to be worried about us and not about the Congress.
Okay.
But no, their first enemy is Congress.
Hold on.
Because they are only a vote Katwa party which has been propped up because as you've seen,
You're worried
Congress has
about
a
Aam
57%.
Aadmi. You're now calling them a vote
No, I'm not.
Katwa party, but hold on. Sudhanshu, you've had your say. Let's look at this leadership issue carefully. Do you believe, Vinay, that is the part of the problem? Who is the BJP's face? Is it Harshvardhan? Is it Vijender Gupta? Is it Vijay Goyal? And we don't know the answer to that yet. Is that going to be a problem? Particularly as state elections are becoming presidential. People want to know who is their chief minister going to be.
And much before the states have become presidential, Delhi was always like that, Rajdeep. In the 90s, the BJP in Delhi was about Malhotra, Sahib Singh Varma and Khurana. Khurana was the face of Delhi politics, and it's always been personality, because in Delhi you don't have a second rung of leadership in any party. Nobody even knows the full cabinet portfolio of any government, even though they've been about 15 years. That's the kind, so you always have a singular personality which dominates an election. That is the reason why Sahib Singh Varma was removed and Sushma was brought in, because she was considered a more acceptable urbane face. So today, for them to now believe that they'll be able to do this election without a face is being very stupid.
You know, you were smiling, Manini, when Sudhanshu Mittal said that this election is BJP versus Congress.
On principles and policies.
You seem to, because at the national level, the BJP is saying it's presidential. Do you believe the BJP should make the Delhi election presidential by bringing in maybe a stronger face?
I think it's too late. I think the reason that the BJP has not been able to project anybody in Delhi is because there's acute infighting. And Mr. Vijay Goyal jumped the gun and he decided to project himself. And he had these posters saying, Vijay hi Lakshya hai, punning on the word Vijay. And today I saw a poster with Vijay hi Lakshya hai, with both Vijay Kumar Malhotra and Vijay Kumar Goyal there, you know. So Vijay Kumar Malhotra is also sort of two Vijays in it. So there is a lot of infighting. That is the reason they have not been able to project anybody. If they could, they would. Every other state they are.
Rajesh, do you get a sense from the poll figures also that one of the issues, that the only issue in a sense the Congress ironically has, that is Sheila Dikshit. She is also the weakness at one level of the Congress, because anti-incumbency can crystallize against a government that's been so long. But compared to what the opposition has to offer, particularly the BJP, she still stands out.
Let me put it this way. I think the BJP is not acknowledging one major transformation that Delhi has gone through in the last 2 decades. There has been a huge demographic transition of Delhi, and where Delhiites are craving for modernity. And there has been no BJP leader who could play up the imageries and those expectations and aspirations. Sheila Dikshit has been able to do it, whether you like it or not.
So you're saying that Delhi BJP leadership in a sense represents an older Delhi. The older Delhi of the Chandni Chowks and the old Punjabi culture of Delhi, not the newer Delhi in a way.
If I could sum it up in one sentence, even in times of despair, where there is a overwhelming majority of them are dissatisfied. Many people feel that she should pass on the baton. Still, Sheila remains the best hope in these times of
But should she pass on? You know, you have put, just as the BJP seems to be putting all its eggs in the national basket, in Narendra Modi's basket, you seem to be doing the same in Delhi. It seems that for you, you are making this a presidential election. Please vote for Sheila ji.
Rajdeep, I think it is actually questioning the intelligence of the voter to say that despite these 3 terms, if they're opting for Sheila Dikshit, it's without any concrete reasons.
But you
and
have
it's
no
only a
alternative to Sheila.
personality.
You also have no alternative to Sheila in a sense. You have decided, is this election for you? Just a minute.
Yes.
Is this election for you Congress versus BJP, or is it Sheila versus who?
It is Congress versus BJP, but Congress led by Sheila Dikshit, based on the policies and the implementation of the policies which she has done in Delhi, which is implemented in Delhi.
Yogendra Yadav, how do you see this? You know, Arvind Kejriwal is getting 22%. He's the second most popular leader, and in many ways it's remarkable. For a debutant to do better than even a national party, you seem to have succeeded in making him a politician of substance for the Delhi voter. But do you believe that Sheila Dikshit still has a certain, she's been able to inspire a certain affection, if I may use that word? She's almost Teflon-like through all the controversies, CWG, everything that goes wrong. Nothing seems to touch Sheila Dikshit in the manner that many would have, the opposition would have hoped.
Rajdeep, no one stays chief minister for 15 long years without some reason. There must have been some strength. Although in the history of tracking of chief ministerial popularity, this clearly looks like the lowest point for Sheila Dikshit, a sitting chief minister, and that too with 15 years, this thing, with very high recall, which usually accompanies a sitting CM. 29% is exceedingly low, and as you rightly pointed out, 22 for a rank outsider is astonishingly high. Something seems to be happening. But allow me to register, Rajdeep,
yes,
that actually in this period we have done 2 polls specifically asking this. And of course, the question was slightly different. We gave people a stark choice between Sheila Dikshit, Arvind Kejriwal and Vijay Goyal. And the figures we get is something like 40% for Arvind Kejriwal.
Okay.
I have a proposal. Allow me to say this. The proposal is very simple. Would the Hindustan Times and C4 please agree to open its data file to an independent set of experts, not me, I certainly am affiliated to a party. Can we get it examined and opened by an independent set of experts? I'm saying it with some confidence and I'm saying it with some reason.
Rajesh, you want to take up that challenge? Is the data available? Do you want to make it fully available in the interest of total transparency is what the Aam Aadmi Party is asking for?
Well, I would wonder if CSDS did it in the past.
Sure. I take your point.
Allow me to answer that.
Yes.
Allow me to answer that. Yes, we did.
Okay, yes, you did. Okay, so we will...
Rajesh, please allow me to say that.
Yes, we've got it.
Yeah,
You've said
please allow
yes,
me
we
to
did.
say that. Number one.
Yes.
Number one.
Yes.
When we were asked, actually by Chandan Mitra, he wrote against us in India Today and said this was a fictional data. In writing, we sent a letter and invited him to the office to say every data file will be open to you and please bring experts with you. He never came. Number two, we did a survey for CNN IBN on Telangana. All kinds of people attacked us. We appointed an expert committee and opened all the files to them.
Okay.
I would invite you to please do that. Yes,
Okay.
CSDS has done that.
Okay, before I take the break, Manini, as someone who's tracked Indian politics, this Arvind Kejriwal phenomenon, just a minute on it. You know, NTR is the last example of someone who came from nowhere and actually won an election, the great Andhra election of the early 1980s. Do you see Arvind Kejriwal somewhere at 20% overall? If the Aam Aadmi Party gets, he has 22% popularity. Is he a bit of a new age urban phenomenon?
No, I think it would be tremendous. Frankly, I think the final figures will not be as
dramatic as
yeah,
these.
because I have a feeling that a lot of people will say that this is a new, but when you go to the polling booth, not very many people want to vote in an opposition, and none of the, they've not created a wave that you think that AAP is going to form the government. But there are people who say that we need watchdogs, and they're very good watchdogs. But the most significant thing I find out of this poll, if this is, even if they get 15%, is that the whole Anna Hazare movement with Arvind Kejriwal as a lieutenant had this complete anti-politician, remember
Yes.
2 years ago. And this was the first NGO kind of civil liberties, human rights, NGO, who are always attacking the system. They've actually entered the system. And if they do well, I think that will have a very encouraging sign that more and more groups across India will start contesting elections and get into the system to change it instead of always being, you know. perennial critics.
Yes, Vinay.
No, I just wanted to add something for our viewers who may not fully know about Delhi, and I think it's important to give out the facts. Delhi is the only state, before Congress and Sheila Dikshit start getting excited about the fact they are very tall personalities, all doing development, Delhi is the only state where the state chief minister does not control land. She has no control over law and order. She does not take part in developmental activities as far as civic maintenance is concerned. You have a cantonment board which is run by the army, and you have an NDMC which is creation of the act. So a lot of things that happen in Delhi is not courtesy Sheila at all.
She has been very clever in taking credit for what has gone right in Delhi, and she has never taken the flag for what has gone wrong. That's the secret of the success, Ragini. She takes credit for what goes right.
I think garlands and brickbats come together, and it's not as if, you know, the viewers or the public or the masses or the Aam Aadmi have a wheel over their eyes and they can't see anything.
Let me take a break. Let me take a break at this point. Get final comments before we, of course, eventually come to the big number of who is winning Delhi. Back in a moment on the big Delhi poll by Hindustan Times. Delhi poll done by Hindustan Times. Remember, Delhi goes to the polls exactly about 2 months from now, and it is the poll to watch. 3 minutes on this segment, so I'm just going to give 30 seconds to all my panelists to tell us the big lesson they've learned. Sudhanshu Mittal, is the BJP seeing these poll figures as of now as a sign that you're coming back to power in Delhi after 15 years, or that you still need a lot of work to do on the ground?
I think this poll indicates that the kind of dissatisfaction there is with the Congress, BJP is there. And the entire theory of the split, the moment people make a choice and realize that it's not the AAP, but BJP which is going to form a government alternate to the Congress, we're going to have it. Take my words. When we sit after the elections, I'll be having a last laugh saying, look, I told you so.
Okay.
Because kis samay zameen khisak gayi, kisi ko pata bhi nahi lagega.
Okay, so you're saying...
We are there, we are winning. My last poll, just one line poll.
Yes.
You know, I have done a survey of 1.5 lakh people, and my results were out on 30th August.
Yes.
And I have improved by 4.8%.
Okay.
And we are winning on 44 seats.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Okay.
And since then, we have gone places.
Okay,
so that is the truth. No matter what anybody may say.
I take your point. Every politician nowadays seems to do surveys, which is becoming worrying for the pollsters. But Ragini Naik, there is a worry. There is an anti-incumbency. Let's be clear. And if the elections start becoming bipolar, then you are in trouble. Is the Congress seeing the initial findings of our poll as a sign that you are coming back to power as fourth time, or that you have a tough fight ahead?
We are definitely coming back. We are definitely coming back for the fourth time. I'll also give a one-liner to Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal. Ye jo public hai, ye sab janti hai. You won't be able to fool the public for long. Secondly, I would also like to say that under the leadership of Sheila Dikshit, who emerges as the most popular leader and the most popular candidate for becoming the CM, Delhi's Congress is definitely going to come back to power.
Yeah, you know,
you don't have a say in that. You don't even know who the CM candidate is going to be.
Ma'am, I don't think you understand sociology.
Are you
and I don't think you understand what people want.
I'm really amused.
I'm afraid I've run completely out of time. I want to give my friend...
I'm so happy that with 29%...
Okay, I want to give my friend Yogendra the final word. Yogendra, for you, what is the best case scenario? Honest answer at the end. What is the Aam Aadmi Party's best case scenario? Do you want to be king, kingmaker, or spoiler? Are you realistic enough to accept that your best case scenario is a hung assembly and you play the role of a kingmaker deciding between Congress and BJP?
Rajdeep, 6 months ago, I actually thought that we would be a smaller third player. And as you remember, in public meetings, I said, "Pehla chunav harne ke liye, dusra harane ke liye, teesra jeetne ke liye." This used to be my opinion. I have been doing scientific polls since then, and we have made it public. And I'm afraid I won't get to see your vote share. I really hoped I would be able to comment on that. I would just place 3 things for you. Number 1, do remember all opinions always overestimate the ruling party in the pre-election polls. Number 2, do remember every newcomer is always underestimated by opinion polls. These are things I used to say even when I was not on this side of the things. And 3, please remember, we are not discussing a poll 1 week before election. This is 2 months before election. There is something called a trend. If a party has risen from 0 and has reached, you say 20 or whatever figures you show, the important question to ask is, where would it be 2 months from now? Yes, there is a danger zone between 15 and 20. If you get stuck there, as my friend Manini says, you can slip down. My own feeling is that we have actually crossed it, much to my surprise.
Okay.
Our poll showed in February we were 14%. Today, I mean, at the end of August,
king or
we were
kingmaker?
27%. Our current poll actually shows higher.
King or kingmaker? What is the role? Quick, last 10 seconds. King or kingmaker?
Neither. I hope servants who can actually do something about politics in this country. I hope we can unlock the gates to transformation of politics in this country, for which Delhi is the initial battle.
Okay, well, we'll have to see whether you can unlock the gates for Delhi. For now, it appears that what is clear, and we are going to bring the big findings in a moment, is that at the end of the day, Delhi, for the first time perhaps, is heading for a three-cornered contest, which is why Delhi's elections are becoming fascinating and a possible mirror to what could happen across this country come general election time. Appreciate all my panelists joining us. Let's take a break. When we return, we'll come back. Who will win Delhi if elections were held today? We'll be joined by the Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit, among others, as we tell you exactly how these numbers are actually playing out on the ground. The Hindustan Times poll when we return.